Daniel Sterling, a successful but lonely CEO, is trying to move on after the death of his wife, Isabel. The only person who seems to understand his pain is Sophia, Isabel's younger sister, who is also struggling with loss. At first, they were just emotional support for each other, sharing memories of the deceased. But the unexpected, the taboo, happened. From sympathy and understanding, an intense, uncontrollable love blossomed between Daniel and Sophia. A love that even they felt guilty about, felt like they were betraying the deceased. And when this secret was revealed, the rage of the family, especially Isabel and Sophia's grieving mother, flared up fiercely. They saw this as an insult, an unforgivable betrayal. Daniel and Sophia's love was hated, condemned, and tried to be prevented by the whole family. Can love born from pain be considered genuine? Or is it just a shameful substitute? Will Daniel and Sophia dare to face the hatred of their entire families to protect the love they believe is destined, knowing that it will cause more pain? If you want to explore the limits of love and judgment, don't miss this story. The sparkling crystal lights of the luxurious banquet hall at a five-star hotel in Manhattan reflected in Liam Davenport's distant blue eyes. At 28, he was the CEO of Innovate Solutions, a technology company on the rise, a name mentioned with admiration and a little envy in the New York business world. Beside him was Olivia Davenport, his beautiful, charming 27-year-old wife in a tight designer evening gown, a smile always on her lips as she greeted important guests. On the surface, they were the epitome of a golden couple, young, successful, wealthy, and powerful. A picture perfect down to the last detail. But only those who were observant could see the cracks hidden beneath that flashy facade. Liam's eyes occasionally glanced aimlessly over the crowd. His smile, though polite, lacked real warmth. His and Olivia's conversations often revolved around work, social relationships, or plans for the next lavish vacation. Topics that seemed unable to bridge the invisible gap that was growing between them. Their marriage, which had begun with initial admiration and perhaps a push from both families for a good match, now felt more like a perfectly executed contract than a real home. Liam buried himself in his work, finding satisfaction in the continued success of Innovate Solutions as a way to escape the growing emptiness within. Olivia was absorbed in maintaining her image as a successful, beautiful woman, playing hostess at parties and indulging in the world of fashion, shopping, and afternoon tea with high-class friends. While Liam was feeling suffocated in the fake social atmosphere, a familiar yet refreshing figure suddenly appeared at the end of the banquet hall. It was Chloe Martin, Olivia's 24-year-old sister. Having just graduated from a prestigious dance school, Chloe was struggling to find opportunities in this expensive city, temporarily staying in her siblings' luxurious penthouse. In contrast to Olivia's glamorous and sophisticated appearance, Chloe appeared in a simple but elegant blue cocktail dress, her soft brown hair loosely tied up, her face lightly made up, highlighting her clear beauty and warm, intelligent hazel eyes. She seemed a bit out of place in this lavish setting, but she did not appear shy. Instead, she was observant and smiled genuinely as she chatted with a few acquaintances. Liam approached to greet his sister-in-law. "Chloe, I didn't expect you to come," he said, a rare, light smile appearing more naturally. "I got a last-minute call from Olivia," Chloe replied, her smile lighting up the room. "She said I needed to fit in more." Their conversation initially revolved around the usual social topics: Chloe's job search, her grueling auditions, life in New York. But unlike Olivia or the others at the party, Liam found himself really listening to Chloe. He was drawn to the sincerity with which she spoke about her passion for dance, the hardships and small joys of being a young artist trying to find her way. She didn't complain, but spoke with surprising optimism and energy. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm on the wrong path," Chloe sighed suddenly, looking out the window at the city lights. "The art world is so harsh." "But that's your passion, right?" Liam asked, his voice deeper than usual. "I think it's better to pursue your passion, even if it's hard, than to live a safe but empty life." The words seemed to come out of nowhere, reflecting his innermost feelings. Chloe looked at him in surprise. Their eyes met, and in that moment, a tacit understanding, an unexpected connection seemed to form. Liam saw in this young woman a sympathy he had never found in his beautiful wife. Chloe saw in this successful CEO a loneliness and a deep desire for meaning hidden behind the successful exterior. Both felt their hearts skip a beat, then quickly turned away, trying to hide the confusion and vague guilt that had just passed. That weekend, the whole Martin family gathered at their cozy house in the suburbs. Martin's parents could not hide their pride in their eldest daughter Olivia and talented son-in-law Liam. They asked about Liam's work, about their upcoming trips, and reminded Olivia to keep the family happy. Chloe sat there, smiling and participating in the conversation, but felt like an outsider. The only concern everyone gave her was perfunctory inquiries about finding a job, along with advice to be more realistic instead of pursuing an uncertain artistic path. The seemingly warm family atmosphere contained invisible pressures about success, status, and keeping up appearances. Liam sat next to Olivia, playing the role of the perfect son-in-law, but his eyes occasionally inadvertently turned to Chloe, who was quietly observing everything with intelligent, understanding eyes. Chloe's stay at Liam's penthouse lasted longer than expected. She was still diligently sending out resumes, attending auditions, and doing temporary jobs to cover expenses. This meant that Liam and Chloe had more opportunities to interact in their daily lives, often when Olivia was away for social engagements, shopping, or weekend trips with friends. They began to share simple yet meaningful moments. Quick breakfasts before Liam got into the swing of things. Late evenings when Liam would return from the office and find Chloe quietly reading or practicing her soft dance moves in the large living room, the city lights casting shadows on her graceful figure. They talked more, not just about work or passion, but also about their fears, their secret dreams, their views on life and love. Liam discovered a deeper and more interesting Chloe. She was more than just a young, beautiful dancer. She had the sensitivity of an artist, the sharpness of a keen observer, and a warm, generous heart. She listened to him talk about the invisible pressures of the business world, about the feeling of loneliness at the top, with a sincere understanding that he had never received from anyone else, not even Olivia. She did not give empty advice, but simply listened and sympathized. Her presence was like a cool breeze, blowing away the stuffiness and emptiness in his soul. Chloe was also increasingly attracted to Liam. He was not just the cold, successful CEO she had known through her sister's stories or in the newspapers. He was smart, responsible, and far-sighted. But behind that appearance was a complex, sometimes fragile soul, longing for true connection and understanding. She found herself wanting to be by his side, wanting to share his burdens, wanting to bring him smiles and peace. The feelings between them grew day by day, like a smoldering underground stream, growing stronger and more uncontrollable. Both were acutely aware of the wrongness and danger of this forbidden love. The guilt towards Olivia was always tormenting their minds. Liam was torn between his marriage vows, his responsibility to both families, and his intense love for Chloe. He knew he was betraying Olivia, betraying the moral principles he once believed in. Chloe was equally miserable. She loved Liam dearly, but he was the husband of her sister who had always loved and helped her. She felt like a despicable third party, the one who was destroying the happiness of her own family. They tried to resist that evil pull. Liam threw himself into work even more, trying to avoid Chloe as much as possible. Chloe also tried to go out more, meet friends, focus on finding a job and a place of her own. They tried to act cold and distant when they had to meet. But every accidental glance, every fleeting gesture of concern, every short conversation only made the fire in their hearts burn more fiercely. Long, sleepless nights, silent tears, and inner turmoil became constant obsessions. Olivia, absorbed in her own world, initially did not seem to notice anything unusual. She only saw Liam becoming more and more quiet and distant, but she thought it was due to work pressure. She also saw Chloe seem sad and less talkative, but thought her sister was having difficulty finding a job. However, gradually, a vague suspicion began to creep in. She felt the strange tension in the air whenever the three of them were together, felt the strange look Liam sometimes gave Chloe, and Chloe's avoidance and shyness when facing her brother-in-law. But she did not dare, or did not want, to face that terrible truth. She chose to ignore it, deceiving herself that everything was fine. The emotional boundary was finally broken on a rainy night. Chloe had just received a rejection letter from a dance troupe that she had placed a lot of hope in. She felt hopeless and lost. At that moment, Liam came home earlier than usual, looking extremely tired after a failed negotiation. They sat quietly in the living room, only the sound of rain and sighs could be heard. Then, not knowing who started first, they began to share their disappointments and the pressures weighing on their shoulders. Liam spoke for the first time about his feelings of failure, about his fear of not meeting expectations. Chloe cried for the first time in his arms, talking about the hardships, loneliness, and helplessness of a young artist in the harsh city. In that moment of weakness and deep empathy, they found true comfort and understanding in each other. They were no longer brother-in-law and sister-in-law, no longer CEO and young girl looking for a job. They were only two lonely, wounded souls finding support in each other. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with so many things that could not be put into words. The distance between them narrowed. Although no kiss had taken place, the emotional bond between them had been tightened more than ever, a dangerous yet enchanting bond that signaled an impending storm. After that fateful stormy night, the last wall of defense between Liam and Chloe seemed to have completely collapsed emotionally. They could no longer deny the deep connection, understanding, and intense love they had for each other. Despite their efforts to suppress it, despite the constant feeling of guilt, every glance, every silent gesture of care only confirmed that taboo feeling. The tension reached its peak one weekend evening when Olivia was away at a charity event. Liam and Chloe were home alone. The atmosphere was silent, but thick with unspoken emotions. They tried to avoid each other, one reading a book, the other watching TV, but the presence of the other in the same space made it impossible for them to concentrate. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, Liam spoke, his voice hoarse. "We can't go on like this, Chloe." Chloe looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know. I dot." Liam hesitated, struggling with himself. "I love you. I love you so much it hurts. I know this is wrong, it's crazy, but I can't control my heart anymore." Liam's confession was like a knife stabbing straight into Chloe's heart, both sweet and painful. "Me too, Liam," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too." In that moment, all reason, all barriers seemed to melt away. They rushed into each other, sharing their first kiss, a kiss that contained all the pent-up desire and passion, but also tinged with guilt and despair. It was the point of no return, the affirmation of a love that would bring storms, and the storms came faster than they expected. By some twist of fate, Olivia returned home earlier than planned, feeling unwell. She entered the quiet penthouse, and the sight that greeted her left her speechless. Her husband and her own sister were kissing passionately in the living room. The designer handbag in her hand fell to the floor with a dull thud, interrupting Liam and Chloe's guilty moment. The three of them stood there, staring at each other in shock. Olivia's face was pale, her eyes wide with disbelief, then quickly turned to extreme pain and mad indignation. You two dare!" she stammered, her voice cracking with shock and hurt. Liam and Chloe quickly separated, their faces drained of color. Guilt and shame overwhelmed them. There was no explanation that could justify this action. What happened next was a nightmare. Olivia screamed, questioned, and smashed furniture in a fit of rage and pain. She called her parents immediately, sobbing and telling them what had happened. The news was like a bolt from the blue to the Martin family. They immediately drove to Liam and Olivia's apartment. The scene that followed was a tearful confrontation and vicious words. Martin's parents, who had always loved and were proud of their son-in-law, now looked at Liam with hatred, calling him a traitor, a family destroyer. They turned to Chloe, their youngest daughter, whom they had always loved, now seen as the most despicable traitor. "How dare you do that to your sister? Swing, are you still human? Component placement. Get out of this house now." The insults and criticisms cut into Chloe's heart like knives. Martin's family completely sided with Olivia, demanding that Liam immediately end his relationship with Chloe, compensate Olivia for her injuries, and preserve this marriage at all costs to save the family's reputation. They used all possible pressure, threatening to make everything public, affecting Liam's business, completely cutting off relations with Chloe. Liam and Chloe were pushed into complete isolation. They are in the eye of the storm, facing the hatred of their loved ones. The guilt is even heavier, weighing down on their newly acknowledged love. Is this love strong enough to weather the storm? Or will it be crushed by family pressure and social prejudice? Liam is at the most difficult crossroads of his life. Choose responsibility, the false security of his current marriage, or choose true but thorny love with Chloe. His decision will determine the fate of all three. Facing the wrath of the Martin family and the irreparable breakdown of his marriage, Liam Davenport has gone through the most intense days of torment and internal struggle. Pressure from all sides weighs heavily on his shoulders. Responsibility for Olivia, the expectations of both families, the risk of affecting his reputation and career, and above all, his intense but guilty love for Chloe. He knows that any choice will cause deep hurt. But in the end, after long, sleepless nights of thinking, he realized an undeniable truth. He could no longer live in a lie. His marriage with Olivia had long been broken, and holding on to it would only bring more pain to both of them. His love for Chloe, though it began in the wrong circumstances, was the truest and strongest emotion he had ever felt. He could not give her up, could not turn his back on the girl who had awakened his heart from its long hibernation. Liam made the final decision, a decision that required courage and acceptance of loss. He met with Olivia alone, frankly admitted his feelings for Chloe, and proposed a divorce in a decisive but respectful manner. He accepted all of Olivia's financial and legal terms, only wanting to end things as peacefully as possible, knowing that pain and hurt were inevitable. He also confronts Martin's parents, explains his decision, and accepts their severance of ties, even though it hurts him deeply. Chloe, after leaving her siblings' apartment in humiliation and despair, also has to make her own choice. She loves Liam dearly, but the fear of hurting her sister and causing the family to break up makes her want to run away. Can she live happily with Liam knowing that her happiness is built on the pain of others? But then, when Liam comes to her, talks about his decision to divorce, and affirms his unchanging love, she realizes that giving up now is even more painful. Their love has gone too far to turn back. She decides to take Liam's hand, face all the storms with him, accept the coldness of her family, and start a new life full of challenges. They move to a smaller, more modest apartment, away from the upper class and the judgment of the Martin family. The new life was not easy. Liam had to deal with gossip in the business world, some partners turning their backs, and stress at work. Chloe struggled with guilt, homesickness, and the difficulty of finding her own career path when she was labeled as a third person. They did not try to sugarcoat the past or deny the pain they had caused. They learned to live with the scars. Liam spent more time with Chloe, learned to listen, share, and express their feelings sincerely. He supported her in pursuing her passion for dance and helped her find opportunities in the arts. Chloe became a strong spiritual support for Liam. Her warmth and understanding helped him overcome the difficult period at work and the distance from his ex-wife's family. As time passed, would Olivia be able to forgive and forget? Can the Martins open their hearts to acceptance, even reluctantly? Perhaps not completely. Heart wounds too deep to fully heal. Liam and Chloe know they have to accept that, accept the price of their love. One weekend afternoon, Liam and Chloe sat quietly by the window of their new apartment, looking down at the bustling crowd on the streets of New York. There was no more glitz from parties, no more pressure from social relationships, just the simple peace of being together. Their love, despite starting in tragedy and being hated by the whole world, was still strong and lasting. They found each other, and although the road ahead was full of thorns, they knew that as long as they had each other, they could overcome everything. They couldn't stop loving, and they chose to live true to that love, accepting all the consequences to be with the one they loved. Their story is a sad but also vibrant love song about the unstoppable power of love, even when it sprouts from the darkest and most forbidden places. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you like this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more meaningful stories.